you doing?
All right, another beautiful day here in Seattle.
Hey Shane, last week we didn't see the tight ends utilized as much as the previous week, and Russ said part of that was Tyler Lockett just keeps getting open. In this offense, what's the right balance for use of tight ends?
Sure, I think, spoke about it a little bit earlier on about, different guys getting the ball and, how do you distribute it evenly throughout everybody. And you go into every game with that intent of wanting to get the ball spread around, letting all the guys that can make plays, make those plays within the game. And then sometimes when you call a certain play for someone, the coverage doesn't dictate the read going to that guy. And that kind of happened a few times, especially early on in the game. And, we want to keep doing a good job of trying to get everyone involved. But the guys have been doing a great job as far as staying in tune on the sideline, being supportive of each other, knowing that, hey, one play might go my way this week. The next week, hey, plays that were designed to go to someone else could go to the tight ends as a good example there. So I think the guys just doing a good job of being unselfish, understanding that, we're doing a good job here trying to game plan it where guys aren't spread around with the touches. And then some weeks it's not going to work out exactly as you draw it up.
Did you notice a difference in the element of surprise last week when you'd had a little bit on film for Tennessee to look at?
Sure, I'm sure there's some of that when you go into week two, coming into week one where, a little bit of newness to the system, and week two, maybe they have a little bit more to go off of, but I don't see it as a big impact in the way the game played out.
What was your view of the overtime 3-and-out?
Yeah, I think you do a better job of putting our team in a better position to try to win the game right there. Live and learn from those mistakes and really, move forward and do the best we can the next time that situation arises.
What was your assessment of the running game on Sunday?
Just inconsistent. We know we want to be a balanced attack. We want to be able to run the ball and certainly want to be able to do it at a more effective level, stay more committed to it as the game goes on especially. But, Chris ran hard, especially on the change, the sudden change when we got the back-to-back runs, was able to power it in there. And then just overall with some of the things in the run game, that early down efficiency just shows up as being so important so that we can stay committed, we can stay on track and moving the ball with the run game.
How does running the ball effectively early help you with the fourth quarter when you kind of close out?
I think, sometimes it goes that way early. I think I've been part of different games where, you don't necessarily have to run the ball well early in order to run the ball well late. I think more when you get into those latter half of the game, staying efficient, avoiding penalties, avoiding any, quick game incompletions where we can stay on track. I think those all go together with the run game. But there's no doubt if we can start with a run game that start to finish is efficient, it's going to affect the entire outcome of the game.
You, of course, looked at DK Metcalf's career before you got here and studied it. How different is what he's being asked to do this year than his previous two seasons?
I think especially as last year came about, he's doing a lot of similar things, trying to move him around. He's done a lot of different things in his NFL career, even though it's pretty early into his career so far, and he's done them at a really, really high level. And I think one thing he's done a great job is understanding after, having some production there, a few times where like we talked about with the tight ends, when coverage get rolled to him or things play out a little bit different, staying up and staying moving, knowing that he's still affecting the defense, even though he might not have gotten some of the touches we'd like to him get so far.
Are you still seeing the extra attention on him? It started about midway point of last season.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that?
Oh, sorry, we got a going through the back. Couldn't hear you.
Are you noticing the bracketing coverage, the safety over the top, the things that the team started to do last year? How much have you noticed that the first 2 weeks, and how much does that change in the middle of the game when you notice that for you?
Yeah, I think it has come up, and we're expecting it, and that's where we're getting a chance to move him around a little bit there to be able to get him some touches when it's not always going to be a clean game for him. But as we go through it, it's a long season. I think we'll keep, like we talked about, keep scheming up different things where we're trying to distribute the touches, and certain weeks it's going to go one way or the other, and so far, it's gone the way of Tyler, where the way the coverages is distributed on some of these deeper play actions or deeper shots, and he's been the one that's benefited from them. And like to think as the season goes, you get a good mix and a good balance with those guys.
Is anything surprising you about Tyler that, you saw him from afar in LA, but that you didn't realize until you got here?
More so just the person, how great of a person he is, because I've always had such a great amount of respect for him from afar. He's such a good route runner, and he always has been such a good route runner. Great natural hands, his footwork along the sidelines, his ability to create separation at the top of routes, even though he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's just got that nifty feel as a route runner. But the person, now being around him, just a great human being, really caring, really into it, and in all walks of life, in all areas of his life. So he's a great leadership style where guys listen to him. He has a lot of great things to say. And then, his practice habits, his work habits match up with how he is as a person.
The catch he made where he's running towards the left sideline and he's near the sideline and he still looks over his left shoulder.
Yep.
For people who don't understand how difficult that is, I mean, can you...
He'd be a great center fielder, wouldn't he? I mean, his ball tracking skills, his ability to adjust late in the throws where he can have that false acceleration and then burst underneath the ball and seems to always be able to keep himself between the defender and the ball. It's just a unique ball tracking skill that he has. It's a God's gift that he's given him, and he does a great job with it.
What's false acceleration?
Just where he feels like he might be accelerating through a different angle of a cut, but he's really just setting the DB up to break it out, break it in or breaking out, just giving him that feel that he's running one way at full speed, but really his body control is ready to turn and cut the other direction.
First time going through this kind of week with Russ. Did you learn anything about him kind of as you sat down and discussed the game, broke it down one day in particular?
Yeah, it was great. We had a great day on Monday, Tuesday, really wrapping up all the areas to cover from the game, and then just with his mindset, his competitive nature, ready to get right back to work. And you see it build up throughout the week. Had a great day today. We're locked in, moved forward. Adjustments that we needed to make or anything that we needed to talk about, being really, really forthcoming, talking about them, and then moving forward ready for this week with the Vikings.
Do you meet with Russ every day after practice or morning free?
Yeah, I mean, we're with each other a pretty good amount of time. So, yeah, before practice, we got meetings, after practice meetings, along with the rest of the guys. So, get a good chance to get through all aspects of the opponent as we're getting ready.
So it's it's all the quarterbacks that you're talking about?
Yeah, they've got a lot of the quarterbacks, some individual time mixed in there as well. Yep.
What does that look like on Tuesday? The players aren't required to be here on Tuesday.
Yeah, players' day off, that's separate there. That's where Russ does a great job. He's got his routine where he gets, we get together on Monday, go through some things, and then he's able to take a lot of the guys on his own, and they're able to talk through some things, and he's able to be a leader in that regard where he gets the guys a little jump on what's to come.
Tyler has said he feels like this offense this year, he's got a little bit more freedom in it. I know this is your first year here, but do you know what he means by that, or is that sort of a way that you like to teach your receivers that they have a lot of freedom in the offense?
Yeah, I can't speak for what he's done in the past, but just as far as what he's been able to do now, just having, like we talked about, the ability of his ability to run different routes, put some different sauce on those routes so they might be, how they're drawn up on a piece of paper isn't exactly how they're going to be run on the field here, especially when coverages play out a little bit differently. But he has such a good mental clock and understanding the timing and rhythm of plays where he can use his natural ability to get open, maybe different than a straight line on a piece of paper.
If DK Metcalf and Adam Jude were racing, how many yards do you think DK would have to give him in a 100-yard race?
I don't know. We can't bet on anything in the NFL, so I'm not betting on this either. So I'm gonna stay away from that one. I just know he's really fast, so I know I wouldn't be wanting to race him. I'd need about a 99-yard head start on a 100-yard dash. So.
Do you think does flipping like Damien and DeMarco the way you guys are have any impact on the run game blocking? Do you think Tuesday or Sunday?
Flipping, you're talking with D-Lou having to be out and having Jamarco go in there. I don't think so. I think Jamarco's done a great job for us. I just think collectively as a whole, everyone can do his stuff a little bit better, starting with myself, and just being efficient, being on the same page and getting that thing going.
Patrick Peterson's had a history of shadowing Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
In your last 5 or so years looking at defenses, has that trend gone less? Is there less of that or more, or about the same the last 5 years of shadowing?
Oh, shadowing. I mean, it comes up. It just depends what defensive structure you're going against, if they have that ability to do that. And I know certain corners like doing it, as part of their play style, and they want to be able to track the different guys. And, obviously Patrick Peterson's been at the top of the game for a long time, had a bunch of battles when, he's at Arizona. Now he's, in a different number going with the single digit here, but still playing at such a high level. And, he's got great ball skills, great body movement skills. He's a bigger corner. He can play hands-on. So he is that style of corner that can go ahead and match up, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a DK body type. He can go match up with a lot of different body types around the league and be a plus matchup for them. So, just a lot of respect for him and knowing where he's at all times.
Do you like that as The play caller as a challenge that someone wants to go man-to-man all over the field or something?
Yeah, I think for me it's being smart with the play calls, and I know the players take it as a challenge. They know what's going on and seeing that, and it's always a good competitive challenge when you got a guy that's competitive like DK is and like Peterson is. If they happen to be going against each other, I know there's a little heightened awareness when guys move with each other. But I think at the end of the day, you really got to settle back in and make sure you're not going outside the framework of what you know how to do and getting tied up with an individual matchup. It's just the same as you'd run a route out here on the grass against a scout team look, taking that mindset. Same thing when you're calling plays or coaching these guys on game day, really trying to have that sameness in the approach, whether it's a Monday walkthrough, a Wednesday practice, or Sunday on game day.
The Vikings like to put their best pass rusher, which in this case is Hunter.
Yeah.
A lot of times against the team's right tackle. Is that unique for teams to put their best guy on the right side?
Yeah, I think again probably goes back to his preference, what he feels best about. I mean, he's a unique pass rusher. He's got great explosion off the ball and plays with such great length. Them being at home, I'm sure he's ready to roll there. So he's someone we got to keep an eye on. But yeah, I know usually you get it. A lot of times you get it on the left side, but I think you come to preference if a guy has feels more comfortable on one side or the other. I'm sure the defensive coaches would defer to the player's ability, on one side or the other. No different than if you had some linemen that might feel better in a left-handed or right-handed stance.
Alex Collins got one carry for 25 yards last week, which leads to the obvious: should he get more carries or whatever? Do you how do you sort of do that? I guess on game day, kind of getting the other running back in, especially when you got a guy
Sure.
that is dominant as Chris.
Well, Chad Morton's done such a good job tracking those guys. Obviously Chris Carson has been our lead back so far this year, and he's done a great job. Came in phenomenal shape and is able to play that lead role, especially after Rashad was injured there. And so I think just keeping track of it throughout the game. How's Chris doing? We got a bunch of backs that we have a lot of trust in with DJ Dallas and Travis Homer as well. So, and Alex Collins has done just a great job ever since I feel like I've been around him in OTAs all the way through here. All he's done is everything we've asked of him, and it's not a surprise he gets his opportunity there, just like that third preseason game when he got some ops and is able to show what he can do and what he has done in this league during his career already. So I think just doing a good job with those guys, understanding where they're at as far as how many reps they've had, what how physical of the carry's been, and like I said, Chad's done such an excellent job of having a feel throughout the game, getting those guys subbed in and subbed out, so we're maximizing their ability.
How does that work? Like, would you ever say, "Hey, I want to call this play for this guy," or would you call a play based on who the running back coach has in on that play?
Sure. There's certain things maybe throughout a game plan where there's player-specific things, and then there's other times where same thing comes up with whether it's tight ends, receivers, or the running backs, where we have good depth at some of those positions where you feel good about, hey, we're going to call our best plays, and if a guy happens to be out because he was tired to play before, whether it's a Gerald versus Will situation or whether it was Alex because Chris was out, just have so much confidence in any of those guys that are in the game at that point in time that you feel like you're always leaning on your best play unless there's a thing or two in the game plan that's so specific for a player.
If Jamarco has to play Saturday in place of Brandon, what have you seen and learned from him that makes you confident he will do well if he does have those one-on-one matchups with Hunter?
Yeah, I think Mike Solari's done a good job from the start of training camp with him and Khalil and Andy of really moving him around and a lot of those O linemen around. So they've gotten to work at multiple positions, and so getting that work at multiple positions, like for a guy like Jamarco, where he's right on the cusp of being a starter, and when his number's called upon, he's shown that he can play at that starting level ability. Makes you feel good about if it's a different position this week or within the course of games, if a guy gets hurt or has to come out for a play or two, and you got different swing backup linemen that you feel good about, you don't feel like you're missing a beat right there, and Jamarco's one of those guys.
What have you learned in 2 games maybe you didn't know about the job before, or about yourself maybe?
Yeah, about myself, I think I've really tried to keep that level-headed approach, and it's really there's going to be highs and lows throughout the year, and it's how quickly you can bounce back when things don't go exactly as you want them to go, a la this past week, and then hey, get to Monday, get it corrected, get to Tuesday, and really knowing, hey, you got to talk to yourself and get yourself right back in that mindset, and which we really did a good job, and the coaching staff did a great job of, hey, get through the corrections. Tuesday, start getting into game plan mode. It's building back up, and now here we are, just finished another great day of practice, and it's right back at it. It's football, and it keeps going.
You talked about the OT sequence earlier and said learning from mistakes is part of the process. What other than the outcome of that, what do you see for some offense was the Staples effort?
Yeah, I think just making sure we put ourselves in good positions to drive the ball right there. Not that, again, you can go back and look back at different calls and the way they play out, but I'm striving to be the best I can for our team, and I think any time that a call doesn't work out, maybe the way you've envisioned it, or defense has played a little bit better, or something doesn't work out, that's where you look back and you try to learn from those and say, man, I want to do that better the next time that scenario comes up, and that's the competitive nature of this business, and that's where I want to hold myself to a high standard and keep looking to improve every time out there.
Anything else, guys? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.